For 21 days, a healthy elephant calf lay down and refused to live. The veterinary team had no explanation. One man did. He just hadn't told anyone. Her name was Pepper. She had arrived at the Amboselli Conservation Center 3 weeks earlier, in good condition, dehydrated from the journey, but recovering. Eating well, curious about her new enclosure, reaching her trunk through the fence toward the older elephants. The staff had celebrated. They had seen difficult cases before. This did not look like one. On day 9, Pepper started spending time near the entrance gate. It began as an hour each morning, her trunk raised, her attention directed outward. The keepers read it as curiosity. By day 11, it was most of the day. She stopped eating on day 12, not gradually, not selectively. She stopped entirely, turned her back on the milk formula that had been her lifeline, and lay down in the corner of her enclosure with her trunk curled beneath her and her ears flat and her eyes fixed on something no one else could locate. Dr. Amara Solis had worked with elephants for 28 years. She had treated calves that arrived near death, animals that had watched their mothers killed at close range, cases that other facilities had given up on. She had brought most of them through. She stood at the observation rail on Pepper's 15th day and understood, with the certainty of long experience, that what she was looking at was outside her catalog. Pepper was not in medical distress. She was not responding to any known pattern of environmental stress. She was doing something more specific and more frightening. She was waiting for something that was not coming. And she was running out of whatever she had been using to keep waiting. The team tried everything. Recorded vocalizations from various herds. Extended contact with the center's matriarch, a 2-year-old female named Nala who had drawn responses from every withdrawn calf the center had received in 3 years. Pepper acknowledged none of it. The overnights were the worst. The infrared cameras showed her pacing the perimeter fence in the dark hours, trunk raised, producing vocalizations that the audio equipment captured, but that Dr. Solis could not match to any known elephant communication pattern. The sounds were structurally wrong, not the shape of distress, not the shape of anything in the literature, as if Pepper were using her elephant anatomy to produce something it was not built to produce. She had noted 3 times in her log that the dogs along the facility's perimeter responded to these sounds with howls and answering barks. She had dismissed it each time as coincidence. On day 15, Pepper began pressing her head against the concrete barriers. The team intervened, patted the surfaces. She found new surfaces. The board met on day 18. If Pepper's condition did not improve within 24 hours, continuing treatment would be prolonging suffering rather than addressing it. Dr. Solis asked for more time. The board gave her until the following morning. She went back to the audio recordings. She listened to the overnight footage from the past week, those strange vocalizations. The perimeter dogs answering, the pattern repeating night after night. Not broadcast. Not general distress. Directed. The way a call was directed when it expected a specific reply from a specific receiver. She pulled Pepper's intake file and found the name of the field researcher who had made the original rescue, Daniel Osei. Wildlife photographer. Remote station in the northern scrubland. She called him at 5:45 in the morning. He answered immediately, which told her he had been awake. She described Pepper's condition, the timeline, the behavioral collapse, the vocalizations, the self-directed harm, 21 days without food. She played him the audio recording over the phone. There was a long silence after the first playthrough. She played it again, and again. Daniel said, "I need to tell you something I left out of my report." He had found Pepper alone in the Kenyan scrubland during the 3rd week of September, dehydrated, disoriented, separated from her herd by a drought. He had the basic veterinary supplies that field researchers carried and the judgment to know she needed more than he could provide. But the conservation center's transport could not reach him for 14 days. So Pepper recovered at Daniel's station. Daniel kept 3 Rhodesian Ridgebacks ash, flint, and cinder. Working dogs bred for exactly this landscape. Animals that had spent years alongside him in the bush. They had never shared their space with an elephant. Pepper had never shared hers with dogs. The first day involved a great deal of cautious circling from all four animals. By the third day, Pepper was sleeping between them. What developed over those 2 weeks was not something Daniel had planned. He simply watched it happen and kept his camera close. Ash, the oldest, appointed himself guardian, sleeping against Pepper's front legs through the night. Repositioning whenever she shifted, Flint ranged wider, establishing a loose perimeter that the calf seemed to understand as the boundary of safe space. Cinder, the youngest, became Pepper's companion through the daylight hours, investigating the same patches of ground, drinking from the same water source, pressing his flank against her side with the confidence of an animal that has decided, without ceremony, that something belongs to him. Pepper learned to produce a sound that none of the field guides covered. A low rumble that dropped at the end into something almost like a bark. She produced it specifically when one of the dogs moved out of her sight line. They always answered. When the transport truck arrived on the 14th day, the 3 dogs followed it to the gate. Ash sat at the fence line for 6 hours after it left. Daniel did not include any of this in his official rescue report. He was a wildlife professional. He wrote what could be verified. He said, "I didn't think anyone would believe me." Doctor. Solis had 4 hours before the board's deadline. She asked Daniel how far away he was. 400 kilometers. He could be there by early afternoon if he left immediately. She told him to bring the dogs. Daniel's truck covered 400 kilometers of red dust road in under 5 hours. Ash rode in the front seat. Flint and Cinder took the back, shifting position every hour, never fully settling the contained restlessness of animals that knew they were going somewhere and had some understanding of what they were going toward. He had not told them anything. He had simply loaded them into the truck and driven. They had understood from the first kilometer that this was not an ordinary journey. At the center, Dr. Solis had prepared what she could, an approach route that minimized disruption, a supervised entry protocol, staff at intervals with authority to intervene. She had also prepared herself, privately, for the possibility that she had spent 4 hours of Pepper's remaining time on something that would not work. She met Daniel at the vehicle. The 3 dogs dropped out of the truck and stood in a loose cluster. Noses working, heads up, reading the new environment with the attentiveness that had made them useful in the field for years. They held close to Daniel. They were not ready to move until they understood where they were. Then Ash raised his head. His posture changed in a way that Daniel recognized immediately, the full body stiffening, the specific angle of the ears. The particular quality of attention that meant something significant had arrived in his information field. Flint and Cinder shifted to mirror him within 2 seconds. All 3 dogs oriented in the same direction toward the far enclosure, where Pepper lay in the afternoon shadow. They could not see her from where they stood. The distance was too great and the angle was wrong. But they had found her. Ash made a sound low. Not quite a bark. More like a word spoken quietly in a language that required no translation. It traveled across the compound and disappeared. Pepper's head came up. Not gradually, not with the slow, effortful movement that had characterized every response the team had observed over 3 weeks. Her head came up the way it had come up in Daniel's field footage from the first week at the station, with the full speed and attention of an animal that has heard the exact sound it has been waiting for. Her ears spread wide. Her trunk rose. She produced that vocalization, the one Dr. Solis had recorded dozens of times in the overnight footage and never been able to explain. That low rumble drops at the end into something almost like a bark. The sound Pepper had invented at Daniel's station for calling her dogs when they were out of sight. Ash answered. Then Flint. Then Cinder. Dr. Solis gave the order to open the gate. The 3 dogs entered at a walk, not a run-the-measured approach of animals that understood the weight of what they were doing. Pepper moved toward them with the same care, her trunk extended, Reaching, she touched Ash first, running the tip of her trunk from his head down his back in the specific motion that Daniel had documented in his photographs. Not exploratory. Not cautious. A greeting with an established form. Something that had been done before and was being resumed. Flint pressed himself against her front leg. Cinder began moving around her feet in the pattern Daniel recognized from the station, that particular circling that Pepper's trunk had always answered by tracing his path through the air. She traced it now. And then, for the first time in 21 days, Pepper made a sound that Dr. Solis had not heard from her before, a high, bright trumpet that lasted 2 seconds and carried across the entire compound and brought every keeper on the property out of whatever they had been doing. It was not a distress call. It was not a food call. There was no entry in any reference volume for what it was. Everyone who heard it knew exactly what it was. Pepper moved to her water station within 4 minutes. She drank twice her normal daily intake. 10 minutes after that, she consumed the first solid nourishment she had accepted in 3 weeks. Ash settled against her front legs in the position he had held through the nights at Daniel's station. Flint ranged to the enclosure's edge and lay down, watching the perimeter. Cinder stayed close to Pepper's head, his flank against her cheek. While she ate, the monitoring equipment registered the changes in real-time heart rate stabilizing, breathing, deepening, temperature settling into the range that indicated rest rather than stress. The numbers moved the way numbers moved when a body decided to stop fighting against itself. Dr. Solis sat in the observation room and wrote her notes in the careful handwriting she used when she needed to be precise. She documented the timeline, the behavioral markers, the physiological changes, the sequence of events. She wrote it all down because it had happened, and because someone else would need this information someday. She did not write down what it had felt like to watch. Some data does not fit in a field log. Daniel established a base near the center. The dogs visited on a schedule often enough for the continuity Pepper needed, spaced enough for her bonds with the elephant herd to develop alongside. On the days the dogs came, she heard the truck from inside her enclosure and was already at the fence before Daniel had finished parking. On the days they didn't, she was engaged enough with her elephant companions that their absence did not hollow her out. The dogs got older. Ash's muzzle went gray first. Then the others followed. Their visits became shorter as the distances became harder. But they continued. Pepper grew. She developed the particular assurance of an animal that has been deeply, specifically known, not just adequately cared for, but chosen. It showed in the way she moved through her enclosure, in the confidence with which she approached the herd matriarch, in the ease with which she learned the things that wild elephants needed to know. On the last visit before Ash died, a morning in late March, overcast, the kind of light that made everything look like an old photograph, Daniel parked at the usual spot and the 3 dogs got out, slower than they once had, and walked to Pepper's fence. She was already there. She touched each of them with her trunk in the order she had always used. The same order from the first day at the station, Ash. Then Flint. Then Cinder. She held her trunk against Ash's head a little longer than usual. Daniel did not know, at the time, that this would be the last visit. He found out 6 weeks later. He did not go back to review the footage from that morning for a long time. When he finally did, he watched the whole thing twice, and then he sat in his truck in the dark outside his station and did not move for a while. He knew how to hold a camera steady. He had spent 19 years photographing things that most people never saw. He was not, by any accounting of himself, a person who was easily undone, but he had spent 14 days watching 4 animals figure out, without any assistance from him, how to take care of each other. And he had understood then, and he understood now, sitting in the dark, that whatever Pepper and Ash and Flint and Cinder had built between them in 2 weeks of shared space and accumulated trust, it was not a thing that had a name yet. It was just the thing itself, solid, particular, and real, the kind that lasts